Would it be creepy if I demand this to be my burial process? I want my family to carve me a jar and then burn me in it and then bury me next to the jar in a smaller pot. Here's where we are. These are all United States bombs that were dropped on Laos. Good morning, everyone. We've got a good day. I'm Steph. This is Tempo Steph. Thanks for coming to the channel. We are just outside of Phonsavan, Laos, and we are visiting the Plain of Jars today, which is very, very exciting. I've made it to the Plain of Jars Visitor Center, which is, I think, funded by the government of New Zealand, which is really cool. The Plain of Jars is a megalith site. It's one of, because megalith sites are pretty unique in Southeast Asia. So these are just hundreds and hundreds, there's thousands of stone jars that were carved out of single pieces of stone, and they're scattered all around this area, like way out. But there's only some sites that we can go to because there is unexploded ordnance also in this entire area. So we're going to go to the sites that have been cleared today and learn more about the amazing culture that built these very, very unique megaliths. So I'm very excited. Let's go. You know you're kind of deep in when you have to take your shoes off at the museum. I think this is silk. This is really cool. Little silk cocoon. I don't really know much about it. So I've watched videos, so it's really neat. Really, really neat. All right, down. I'm gonna learn a bunch in here and then relay some information to you. How does that sound? Don't touch. Don't touch. So it has a lot of influence coming from China, and in the Iron Age, the culture that lived here was quite wealthy and built these amazing jars. And the Southeast Asian Iron Age was 500 BCE to 500 CE. So between 1500 and 2500 years ago, and that's where the jars date to, which is super, super cool. So Phonsavan, this is where we are, and this is actually where we are right now, and this is the jar site we're going to go to. Then I think we're going to swing on down here, and we might swing out here. There's lots of small, like 1 or 2 jar sites everywhere. And I was listening to a really cool podcast of an archaeologist based in Thailand who studies the jars, and she was saying that they go and they go to each village and they because they want to get a correct count of the jars. And like villagers will be shy, saying, well, oh no, we only have like 2 or 3, you're not going to be interested in them. But once archaeology sees, because they're brand new, they haven't been seen yet, there's so much more information that can be learned from them. So very, very. Yeah, Polani, she was a famous archaeologist. She documented so many of the jars. She wrote a 600-page book about megaliths in Laos, and she's actually the standing stones that I wanted to see yesterday. She was basically the only one to report on them, and not since the 1930s. So I've actually read up on her. She's an amazing woman, and just a pioneering archaeologist in general, never mind a female archaeologist. So she is very, very cool. Madeline Kolani. Thank you, Miss Kalani, for all your wonderful work. The kind of purpose of the jars in mythology, in local legend, had been to make like rice wine as a big celebration. But there are grave goods and there are burials found in some of the jars. But they're not just for burials either, because not all of them have remains or have traces of remains. But then some of them have grave goods located in or around them. The secondary burial theory, I think, is much more accepted today, but I think even that's kind of falling out of favor. That you would have somebody in there, whole, they would come to bones, and then you rebury the bones in an urn next to the grave. And they found a lot like that, or next to the jar itself. Because there are a lot, next to the jars, you have the stone jars, and then you have these pits next to them too, grave sites, with the slabs on top. So they've been here for, 2,500 years. They've probably been used different ways by different cultures. And the idea of finding new sites that haven't been explored by archaeology means maybe they haven't been explored by looters as well. So there could be a lot more sites out there that have more grave goods. And that's very exciting to to continue to explore. The Plain of Jars was granted UNESCO World Heritage designation in 2019. So that is going to go a huge way to preserving what is here, and then more research about what is known, and then more research into the unknown too. So it's very, very exciting. But the issue, of course, is there is all this unexploded ordnance all around here. Here's where we are. These are all United States bombs that were dropped on Laos. And these are the cluster bombs. These are the ones that didn't explode. So only half of these exploded in the air, and the other half are still in the ground. And these are the ones that kids pick up, and these are the ones that farmers hit with their hoe. And the Plain of Jars is riddled with them, and so much of it was destroyed by the bombing too. So the sites that are left now, even all of the sites that were researched in the 1930s are not here anymore. So that documentation that we have is all we have. So the site, the #1 site, which is connected to the visitor center here, has 334 jars and covers 25 hectares. The biggest jar is a diameter of 2.5 meters and is 2.5 meters high. Wow, fascinating. We're gonna go see him. Let's go see him. There aren't really like any signs or anything. I asked the kid that I get the ticket from, should I take the motorcycle or park it there? He said, you can do whatever, you know. I thought, oh, okay, I'll just walk, but I don't know that people walk this. I'm not entirely sure. And I don't think people come without guides. You'll be fine. Is this where the tour starts? The jars were carved out of like 5 different rocks. I think sandstone being the most common, because clearly it's the easiest to carve. On this site, they are sandstone and conglomerate stone, which is like, looks like little pebbles all melted together. But it's not cement, it's actual carved out of a rock. But some of them are made, and not in this site, are made out of granite, which is insane. Because you had iron tools, but still, oh, I see them. Oh, they're over there, they're over there. Oh. But these are craters. These are bomb craters. Let's check these out first, because they are, as any piece of soil, any piece of earth has a history. For a long time, this piece of soil was dominated by the jars, but in the past century, it's been dominated by this, by war. Death from above. Another one over here. Whew. So the people that made these jars, they didn't leave us with any written record, or they didn't leave us with any grand cities. They left us with these beautiful jars. Clearly they had something very, very important to do with their burial rites. And beyond that, I don't think we really know. But on this site, many human remains were found next to the jars, reburied. So, yeah, they're right here. You ready? I'm a little scared. This is kind of big for me. Like, I will tell you guys, this isn't as like that, but like the first time I went to Angkor, I like couldn't look at the temple. I couldn't go in at first. Same thing with the Colosseum. It's like I have these deep insecurities about, I don't belong here. Why do I get to come here? Out of everybody in the world that's ever existed, what makes me able to fly around the world and see all these amazing places like this. Here we are on the Plain of Jars. Look at how big this one would have been. And if these hadn't been damaged by 2,000 years of history, I'm sure this bomb might have had something to do with it. I just remembered that I left my Laotian phone in the cubbyhole on my motorcycle, which is unattended, far away. So I don't know if it's going to be there when I get back, and if it's not, it's my own fault. Absolutely my own fault. To group over 300 of these together in this spot, this site, the site one, must have been incredibly important to the people that built these. This would have been upright, you know, at some point. So cool. And look, there's so much more. Let's go. Oh, so these were the trenches that the Laotian soldiers used to defend the Plain of Jars. It's been a strategic spot for a long time. And I didn't see anything in a diagram, but I would imagine with the grouping of the bombed out sites here, and that there's still so many surviving stones here, one would imagine that there were stones here that were damaged because of the bombing. I don't know how the grouping was. We have to check Madame Coleni's sketches for that, I think. So down the hill from the first group is group 2 down here. And this is really interesting because there are primary and secondary burials that are dated to the 9th to the 13th centuries. So this is, you know, 1,000 years ago to 700 years ago. So this is very different than the people that were initially built these jars. So this is just another, people reuse things all the time in different ways. And they were burying their dead differently from the jars than they were before that. So things just change and things evolve and diffusion, and it is all very cool. Because there's no one, on a site that's been used for this long, for any site, any place that people have inhabited, there's no one way. When we think of an archaeological site, how it's preserved, like we think of the Colosseum, like I was just talking about, the Flavian amphitheater. We think of what we see now as the Colosseum, but that's been reverted. It was colorful and magical when the Flavians built it, and then it deteriorated and it got used for so many different things, and so much of it went to build other things, and now it's been kind of put back together. But that image that we have of it in our mind, it's been a living thing for 2,000 years. The same with the sites here. this has been an important site to the people in the area for a very, very long time. And it still is. I mean, this is very unique cultural heritage that I think the Laotian people should be very proud of, because it's beautiful and it's amazing. So on this site they were finding a primary burial, which was just a shallow, you know, you take a full body, you put it in like we do in the West now. And the secondary burials found on this site were cremations that were then put into smaller urns and then buried around the stones. Oh, why did someone put a Q-tip in there? That's not cool. The broken ones kind of give a good feeling of what it was like to chisel them out. Like in the bottom, look at the marks. Why stone? I mean, because it lasts, I guess. Would it be creepy if I demand this to be my burial process? I want my family to carve me a jar and then burn me in it and then bury me next to the jar in a smaller pot. That would be pretty sick. As it stands now, I just want to get all of the usable pieces can go to science. I'm totally cool with that. I want anybody that wants any of my disgusting old lady organs can have them. But the remains, I really, really would like to be fed to great white sharks off the coast of Northern California, but, you know, I don't know if that's going to happen. So they were still in 2016 unearthing human remains right here on this site. So there is still so much more to find here. There's an international team now that works on it. I think it's Australian-led, and then working with just a global team of specialists to make this happen. The continued archaeology. Whoa, these guys are going at it. Oh, no, he gave up. What about this guy? Is that spider coming back for more? I wouldn't fuck with this dude with the fluff. Like, he looks like he stings. I love these cuties. And this cutie. The jars are a habitat. They're all over this. They must fall from the tree, I would imagine. Hi, cuties. I've been really annoying with animals the last couple of weeks because I've been away from my dogs for over a month now, so I haven't had any like physical contact. Like I stayed with a friend and I was able to like cuddle her dogs, but it's like all that affection, I have nowhere to put it. So the poor dogs and cats on the streets, they have just been getting all of my attention. So, but when it's coming down to caterpillars and I'm like, oh, I want to cuddle the caterpillar. Maybe it's time to find a nice friendly dog today and just give some cuddles. This one has a lid. I don't know if it was the lid that went with it, but it's definitely a lid they found next to it. It looks like it goes with it. That's great. You see it's textured? This is so cool. I don't know if they all had lids at one point. I know they found a lot of lids. And these were, I don't think these were natural on-site stones. I think they were quarried. I know all of the plain of jar sites are near quarryable areas. So where the rock was produced was very close to the site. have just a little elevation up here so we can kind of see the site a little bit more. A small grouping of a few jars on the prominent hill in the area. So that group 1 is on that hill, and then that group 2 is just kind of snaking to the side. And then on this hill there is a cave where Madame Colony discovered many human remains and all kinds of burial goods. So let's go in there and check that out. I'm excited about the cave. I'm always excited about a cave. So these craters exist everywhere in the country. It's not just here. But this province, of course, was where most of the bombs were dropped. And it's still scarred. The landscape is scarred everywhere. And just so on this site, what did they say? We did the numbers earlier that they pulled out how many unexploded ordnance? And that's just on, so think about, you know, if a family has a farm this size, or, you know, the village has fields that are the same size as this, and it's not been cleared. It's just a matter of time before somebody puts a hoe in the ground and boom. I love this because it has Madame Kalani, her explanation for the cave where she found pot shards, stone tools, and bones. She thinks that it would have been a crematorium, and the man-made holes in the top of the cave would have been chimneys. Then the bodies then would have gone into the jars or into the urns. But, and that, I mean, I don't know if that still holds water or not. But the local legend says that the jars were not carved, but molded from sand and pebbles using glue made from buffalo hide, sugarcane, and lime powder. And the cave was the kiln. So that's interesting. I think the science has disproven that, but that's really cute too. Sabadi. Sabadi. This cave was also used as a shelter during the bombing too. I don't think this should be walked on. Oh, maybe it's from the wall. I'm gonna say it feels like the top of like an iron pot. I'm sure this place has been excavated to the hilt. I don't have to worry about it. It's fine, it's fine, it's fine. It is kind of an interesting theory. I mean, both are, aren't they? Because those are cool holes. It could be a kiln. I mean, it would be easy enough to think that it was a kiln without the scientific evidence. And then Madame Kalani's idea that it was a crematorium is also very interesting. So.